Hello, my name is Dave. What we have here today set out on either side of me is a fully set up Central Oregon tarp. What we're going to do today is we're going to explain exactly how we go about setting them up. Once they're rigged, we're going to show you exactly how we're going to tarp. Thank you. What we're going to show you now is how these tarps are set up. What we have is we have two 60-foot lengths of shock cord with a J-hook attached to the end, ran through the D-rings along the side of the tarp. We always put two on each side to allow us to quickly tarp our loads. This is one of 4 permanent knots that we use on our tarps on the tongue. It's attached to the top of the tongue of the tarp, and it is approximately 16 feet long. Here's the second one on the other side, mirroring the other side over there with a J-hook attached to the end. On this end, we've got the other two with J-hooks applied. Both are 60 feet long and run the length of the tarp through the D-rings. Here are the opposite ends of the ropes that we were working with at the other end. Here also are the other two permanently tied knots on our tarp. This is to attach the back of the tarp. All of our tarps have J-hooks applied to the end of the rope, open rope. We're also taking and throwing all of these inside of the area that they are attached to make the tarp easier to roll up and to deploy. Now I'm ready to start folding. What I have now is I have Brad tying a permanent knot at the open end of the tarp. This is the same lines that we applied or that were on the other tarp. We're just now showing you how to do it. Remember to always throw your lines in to the area of tarp that you're working. Brad's now going to show you how to run lines through the D-rings and apply an S-hook or J-hook at the other end. It's important that when you're running your lines through that you run them through the D-rings the same way each time. The ideal way is to come from the bottom of the D-ring up through, just like Brad's doing. Now Brad's going to apply the J-hook by running it through the bottom, through the top, and running the excess through the hole that's left and pulling it tight. Just like that. He's now going to pull the cord all the way through so that one end is up and to the first D-ring that you ran it through. We run 2 lines down each side of our tarps, once again, to make sure that it's easier to tarp once the tarp is on the load. Once again, you can see that Brad is running the rope from the underside of the D-ring and up and through. Once again, Brad's pulling all the slack through, so all the open rope is at one end. Brad is now going to fold the tarps. We're going to use a half fold for our first fold. He is now taking the tongue of the tarp and pulling it down in, making sure he doesn't pull it too far, leaving the band on the bottom of the tarp on the ground. Remember, the smoother and the better you fold your tarps, the easier your tarps are going to be to deal with at the other end. Once again, watch Brad grab at the fold and flick, and it's going to bring the tarp right up and over. Less work and easier to do. Once again, you're going to notice that he's going to grab the end, grab the seam, and flip over, just like that. Brad's now ready to show you what a half fold is all about. He's taking the tarp and bringing it to the middle. You notice how Brad is keeping the tarp relatively low to the ground. When the wind is blowing, this is really key that you understand and learn. He's now going back and straightening out the line of the tarp so that the tarp folds correctly. See how Brad is coming over and he's folding it over again? No wasted steps. Fold both sides in at the same time while you're there. Once again, he's bringing the tarp into the center line, just as he did the first one. He's taking the tarp and moving it to the center line again. Once again, you notice he uses a flick. Flicking keeps the tarp moving, and it won't hang up as much. Once again, he's pulling on the outside edge to make the tarp straight. And taking the big wrinkles out. Once again, like on the other side, he's working the same side, so he's not doing everything twice. Now he's flipping one side over on top of the other one. Matching up his seams. Now he's going to walk from the end of the tarp all the way to the other end of the tarp, on top of the tarp, to get the excess air out of it, making it easier to roll. He's going to pick up the tarp and bring it up to the green mark on the tarp. He's going to place 2 bungees underneath the tarp. We have a total of 6 per tarp. The other 4 go right at the end of the tarp, as Brad is demonstrating. Once again, Brad's walking down the tarp to remove the air. The most important part of this is the first couple rolls on this tarp. The tighter you get it, the more secure your tarp is going to be on your load. You notice also that Brad is working within his body, not stretching out too far. He's also rolling up the extra bungees inside the end for use when we deploy the tarp. Now that Brad has successfully rolled up the tarp in halves, we're going to have him move the tarp up on its end. This is twofold: to allow the water to run out and to make sure that the forklift driver that's working around your load can see your tarp. If you look at where Brad's hand is, this is the folded end of the tarp. It's very important that you keep the folded end in the center of your truck when deploying your tarp, or else the tarp will fall off the other end. Brad's going to let that drop and lift the other end to show you what the unrolled end looks like. It's much tighter. The folded to end is the end that you place in the center of the trailer. Brad is now going to demonstrate how to fold in thirds. The half fold is used and utilized better on a full square load. The three-folded method, or the thirds folded method, is way better for peaked loads. If you notice, Brad has all of the lines inside the confines of the tarp. He's going to start by bringing his tongue in. Once again, leaving the seam on the ground, not pulling the seam all the way up. See how Brad is making sure that everything is laid out nice and flat? Once again, this is going to allow us to properly roll the tarp. He's now going to grab the outer edge of the flap and the seam and flick it, and open over it comes. Always make sure that you're taking as much air out of your tarps as you can through the entire process of folding them, and the end product is going to end up a lot better. Now that he has the flaps over, he's going to bring it and fold it in thirds, which means he's going to take it all the way over to the far side of the tongue, making sure that his blue flaps are inside. Grabbing the end, pulling away from himself so that it straightens the tarp as he pulls. Straightening the outer edge. And smoothing the center. Remember, guys, a little bit more time on folding your tarps makes it just that much quicker to deploy them. Grabbing the edge, bringing it all the way over to the far side of the tarp. Once again, you note that Brad is keeping the tarp relatively low to the ground so that the wind does not get caught up in the tarp. Squaring the tarp on either end and still pulling the tarp back to make sure that the lines are straight and the seams are straight down the side. Remember, guys, if you get rocks inside your tarps, the reason Brad's brushing them off is because they will rub and rub holes in your tarps. Now that Brad has this folded in thirds, he's going to now take it and fold it to the main line, the closest seam away from the end line. 1/3 of the way. Once again, straightening his seams to allow him to roll the tarp up properly. This is going to come all the way over the tarp, once again in thirds. Pulling it back towards him to straighten his lines and matching up his seams. He's now going to take the end and move it to the green line. Taking 3 bungees and applying them underneath. Our front tarps are 2 bungees, our back tarps are 3 bungees. Once again, he's applying the extra bungees on the end of the tarp and walking the air out of the tarp. Then once again, gentlemen, we roll really tight the first few rolls to ensure that our tarp is going to be tight all the way through the rolling process. Brad's now going to hook the J hooks. And stand the tarp up on end. Fold it in thirds.